Well, here we are. Look at you guys, man. Like, I didn't know if we were really going to make it happen. This is a OGGN event that we've never done before. First ever VIPER room. Let me just introduce you guys real quick. Mark LaCour from OGGN, founder, editor-in-chief. Paul Guillory, who is an advisor and land admin at EOG. We've got Wade and Drew out here. I know that they're from the Land Information Services. I can't wait to get to you guys and us really get this party started. And Brian, the founder of VIPER Room. Hey, Brian, and Caleb, tell us why you're here, because I think that's a real treat for everybody.
I am the whiskey guy. I'm here to talk you guys through some of these whiskeys today, so pretty exciting.
Well, we are going to start off with you, so be ready. And then Ryan Ray, how are you, Ryan?
I'm ready. This is my first claiming.
All right.
False start.
So here's the thing: is VIPER Room. What is it? Why are we here? Why does this matter? What is the subject today? That's all really exciting. But we were trying to think of how do we up our game at OGGN? How do we make a happy hour, not just virtual, where it's just the typical thing you hear at work, where people just get together and schmooze? How do we take it to the next level? And that's where Avalor came in, right? Did I say that right, Caleb?
You nailed it. You're like a national. You're basically Scottish now.
Okay. So here's the amazing thing. All of you guys have a setup, and I would love to hear it. And maybe, Caleb, tell us exactly what all the guys have and how you chose it, and a little bit about your brand and what you guys are known for.
Brilliant. Yeah. So this program was kind of born over quarantine. I've got a wee bit of So this program was born over quarantine, guys. Essentially, we couldn't do samplings at festivals. We couldn't go into bars, restaurants, talk to people about whiskey. So we designed this pack that you guys have that's got 3 different Scotch expressions. You guys should have they're labeled 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 is our Avalor 12-year-old. Number 2 is our Avalor 16-year-old, which is my personal favorite. And then number 3 is our Avalor Abuna Alba, and that's the lightest coloured one that you've got there. And you should have a little bit of card here as well that will kind of talk you through it, just in case you, after a couple of scotches, if you can't understand my accent, you'll be able to just read the card and you can pretend that you know what I'm talking about, you know?
So this is great, because everyone who's watching, I want you to know something, that this discussion today, while we're going to get into a lot of things, and COVID is one of them, because all of these relationships that you see on the screen here are all about adjusting, making moves, how relationships help you survive in times of like dire need. And Caleb, I got to say, how amazing that you guys made these adjustments. You evolved your business in a way so that COVID couldn't stop you, right? You had to figure out how to distribute, and you guys have done it. And I think if anyone who's watching this, if you have a company, here it is, we're coming up on the holidays. People have to know, how do you deliver something great, something meaningful? And you add those glasses. I look at Mark's screen right there. That is a gorgeous setup, and that comes in the box. And I guess talk about what it's like. Mark, tell me what it was like when you received this box and you opened it up. You're muted. You're muted, Mark.
That's what happens when you have too many buttons. So the best thing is the backstory. So Callum cold called me on LinkedIn, right? And he reached out and said, hey, we got this incredible award-winning single malt scotch that we want to get in people's hands. And I go, hey, we got the largest oil and gas podcast network in the world, and we like scotch. So let's talk through this. And Callum was just a dream to work with. He handled everything, logistics. So, Callum, a big shout out to you for making this easy for everybody. But I'm just so excited to do this. I kind of want to get started. So I think I'm going to shut up and let Callum talk us through what we need to do next.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you so much, Mark. It means a lot to us, and I would be remiss to not mention the fact that, we've got an amazing team at the back end. My boss, Andy Weir, and our agency, Ayatana, that's who sent you guys the box. They're just so streamlined, and it's basically turnkey now. But without further ado, gentlemen, let's get stuck into the good stuff. So as I talk a little bit about Avalor, feel free to get yourself acquainted with the whiskey. As I said just before we went live, lads, you might not want to pour the whole thing in there. It's 2 ounces each whiskey. The first 2 are going to be 80 proof, but then the last one is hovering around there at 120 proof. So it's quite heavy going there. So you might not want to pour the whole thing in there, and that also means that you can come back and try it. But with any Scotch, guys, I always like to use the label to kind of talk us through it. So this one particularly is our Avalor single malt Scotch. Avalor is this tiny wee town in the north of Scotland with about 1,300 people, and the distillery was founded in 1879. Okay, so we're talking about 141 years ago. And over that 141-year period, we've constantly been reinventing, remarketing, and adapting, as you say, Warren, just trying to change things up and keep things fresh for everybody. This year, obviously, we're running with this virtual tasting that we've done. We've done more than 100 of these in the last couple of months for different companies, different corporate environments, and they go down an absolute treat, and you'll see why now. So with Avalor, guys, these three whiskies that we're trying today, all 3 of them are a single malt Scotch from the distillery of Avalor. The only difference is the first one is the 12-year-old, second is the 16, and then we have something called the Abuna Alba. So you should have number 1 in your glass, okay? This is your Glencairn glass. This is designed specifically for tasting whiskey. Give it a wee nose, okay? This is the thing that you always see on films and on TV. If you don't know anything about whiskey, guys, and it's a little bit intimidating, all you have to do when you nose whiskey is just give it one of these afterwards, and you're on. That's it. You're sorted. Everybody's going to buy it. If you're really struggling, say and then say butterscotch, all right? And people will buy it. People will buy it. They think that you know what you're talking about. So this one particularly, guys, with our Avalor 12-year-old, when we call a Scotch 12 years old, that means that it's been resting in oak barrels for a minimum of 12 years, okay? So this has been 12 years. Think about what you guys were doing 12 years ago, all right? I don't know if you would have been on the OGGN podcast, that's for sure. So,
hey, I got to tell you guys right now, I'm getting comments are going on the live stream. Andrew Addison is just like, yum, Scotch, jealous, I mean, these guys are commuting home and look what we're doing. Damon Matthews is right now just going nice, solves a lot of problems for Christmas. So
hint, have some selections for other people next show. Is that what you're trying to say?
that was the first thing when Mark originally said to me, guys, that you guys had the world's largest oil and gas podcast. I had a bit of a panic because I was like, man, I don't know if we can send out 2,000 kits. I'm really sorry.
That's a big ask.
So after you've had a wee nose of this stuff, guys, have a wee sip. All right, just go on, get yourself stuck in. Have a little sip of this stuff. You don't want to shoot it. You don't want to waste it. Obviously, if you shoot it, it's very, very fast. Just have a little sip of this stuff. In Scotland, we say sláinte. So here's to you guys, sláinte.
Sláinte.
So,
What question for you? When I was in Scotland, I learned that there were basically 3 varieties of Scotch: more of a floral, and then a kind of a fruity, and then a smoky. Would this be a floral or fruity?
So yeah, so this one comes from a place called Speyside, which essentially, when we talk about Speyside, we're talking about 3 flavors: rich, floral, and fruity flavors. Avalor is definitely more on the fruitier side. Okay. As you taste that whiskey there, guys, you'll probably get a lot of honey flavor, a lot of vanilla. You might even get a tanginess that comes almost like a citrus flavor to it, maybe like a lime or a lemon. For me personally, I'm not big on the smoky flavors. An old friend of mine likes to say that it smells a little bit like a wet dog and tastes like an ashtray when you've got a smoky Scotch. I'm the kind of guy that I'm really looking for different complexities with my whiskey, different flavors there. And with Avalor, we really do get that. We really do get a lovely kind of smooth fruitiness to it. And as we move up, as we move to whiskey number 2, guys, if you want to pour yourself whiskey number 2, I'll explain a little bit about where that comes from. Avalor is a whiskey that uses our age statement specifically, we use 2 types of barrel to mature the whiskey. So what we'll essentially do is we'll have Oloroso sherry barrels, which are essentially a fortified wine or a sherry from the southwest of Spain. And then we'll also use ex-bourbon barrels, which of course come from the land of the free and the home of the brave, all right? So we'll basically have those bourbon barrels shipped to Scotland, and we'll fill them with our whiskey. And what that'll happen is that'll start to take on this kind of vanilla note and sweetness that the bourbon will give to it. So it's really, really special to be able to combine those two flavors together. All right. And that'll be the first thing that you experience with the 12-year-old. You'll get a lot of those bourbon flavors, the fruit flavor, the vanillas, the honeys. You might even get some butterscotch, maybe even a touch of spice as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that first one. We'll move on to whiskey number 2. This is our Avalor 16, guys. Okay. So the Avalor 16, like I said at the start, is by far and away my favorite. By far and away my favorite. If anybody ever comes up to me at a festival, or if anybody ever asks me and they say, I'm not a big Scotch drinker, I actually hate Scotch, this is the one that I'll give them. The Avalor 16, depending on what state you're in, but the Avalor 16 will run you anywhere from $70, $75, $80 a bottle, which is actually really competitive for a 16-year-old Scotch. And for me, the Avalor 16 is best described with one word, and that's balance. Okay, we're using these two barrels almost perfectly balanced together, where we'll get the dark fruit flavor of the Oloroso sherry, and then we'll get the honey vanillas of the bourbon barrel. One thing that really impresses me with the Avalor 16, guys, is you might even get a chocolate flavor. All right, I always like to remind myself, or the memories that come to me when I'm drinking Scotch are always of candy, of sweets, right? And for the Avalor 16, I get almost a chocolate flavor on it.
Yeah, very sweet.
Let me ask you a question here.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the second bottle is worth $70. So, oil and gas business, it's not uncommon for us to go out to give, decent gifts. So obviously they should give your product, but give folks a range. If they're going to give a whiskey or a Scotch as a gift, what's a good price range? Because if you're giving it to an aficionado, you don't want to get something that's a knockoff, or you don't want to go to overpay. So what's a good price point for a Christmas gift for a client or a colleague?
Yeah, I mean, it really obviously it will depend on the relationship. If you want a promotion and you're gifting your boss, then you might want to go Avalor 18, at $120, $130 a bottle, obviously. But if it's your father-in-law and you just know that you need to get him something, then it's a bottle of Avalor 12, just off the shelf. Nah, I'm totally kidding. But I would say that, anywhere, if you're looking at age statements, our Avalor 12 is anywhere from about $50 to $55, $60 for a 12-year-old Scotch. And that's almost as competitive as you're going to get. As you look at more independent bottlings and individual barrels and things like that, the price is going to go up. The price will go up. But what I think, Ryan, you actually mentioned something really interesting there. If you're going to give whiskey to an aficionado, someone that really knows what they're talking about, one thing that I would suggest with Avalor that's great is that we work on both senses. We're great for beginners, people that don't really understand the nuances much of Scotch, but we're also great for those people that are aficionados. One of our products, the Avalor Abuna, just won the world's best whiskey at Forbes.com. So we don't just have this really accessible low-end stuff. The $50 bottle, $60 bottle for someone that's looking for a daily dram or a weekend Scotch, but we also have the stuff that really holds up at the higher levels as well.
Yeah, and I'm curious what the rest of the group thinks, because between 1 and 2, I can taste a substantial difference going from the 12 to the 16.
Yeah, definitely.
Number 2 almost tastes like a dessert.
Yep, I agree, Mark. It's really good.
I think one of the things with the Avalor 16, guys, is obviously we have to understand that it's been an extra 4 years in the barrel, right? So it is going to be a little bit smoother. It's going to have a little bit more of that oak flavor, that oak, like almost that tinge of oak to it. But one of the things that I like, and I'll go back to what I said before, it's just great balance. It's very, very, very well balanced. You get both of those sweetness of flavors, the tanginess, but then you also get this kind of caramel chocolate flavor on the other side. So sláinte, lads. I mean, like I say, a really, really easy drinking Scotch, really, really easy to drink. It's got no smoky flavors really there. And it's a real testament to our team, not just here in the US, but also at the distillery. These guys are working hard day and night. I'll move on to our last whiskey, guys. I know that Warren has a timetable to keep to here, and I don't want to keep.
No, what's happening is we're getting so many comments that I don't want to interrupt you, because this is so great and it's awesome. And like in my life, no one's ever really explained these little details to us, and it's so nice to know when you go down a road, especially if you're gifting someone or you really, someone's a connoisseur. don't you want to get it right, especially if you're not equipped? Like, you know, there are a lot of people that are very much, oh, look at that. And that, you know, for those people that are really, you know, well versed in this, it might be easy. But for a lot of us, like for myself, you know, you really want to trust someone else's point of view. And this is like, all the comments we're getting are really positive. Another gentleman that we know pretty well is Michael Rager, who's like, I've got some too, and I'm hitting the cigar,
Oh,
you know, and
nice.
it goes together. But go ahead, Caleb.
No, I think, you know, to be honest, I know that you guys have a lot of people listening to the show, and I think that a lot of us are, as with the dawn of the internet, people are becoming more and more educated towards what they're drinking, right? For Scotch particularly, or whiskey in general, if anyone has any questions, you can actually find us on a chat line. We actually have a dedicated chat line for whiskey questions, and we answer them 13 hours a day between 12 p.m. EST and 1 a.m. EST. All right, so we're on that all day, and that's avalorallAccess.com. Warren, I'll send you the link to that after so that you've got it. And if anyone's got any questions, you know, they can jump on there. Moving to the last whiskey here, guys, and I think that this one is going to be the one that is the heartbreaker. Okay, this is our Avalor Abuna Alba. Now, we launched this last year, at the end of last year, and Whiskey Advocate called it one of the top 5 whiskies of 2019. It's had a lot of great success, guys. Now, the special thing about that, the Abuna Alba, is that we've gone pure American here. There's no European barrel influence, and it's all 100% ex-bourbon barrel. So you're going to get the spiciness to it, the strength to it that you didn't have in the previous two. This one's also up there at about 115. I think it's about 116, 117 proof. So it's very strong. You might want to add a dash of water to it if you like, or a little bit of ice if you're a rocks guy. Ryan's shaking his head like, no way, man. No way.
We're in Texas, man. We can't do that.
Well, if you're going to do the Texan way, you got to live that way, I suppose. So, yeah, this stuff, guys, is extremely special. We launched it last year. Abuna album. So Abuna, the word Abuna, think of Abuna Matata, if you like. Abuna means original or of the origin. And this is essentially a throwback to what whiskey was like in the 1800s in Scotland. And then Alba comes from the Scots Gaelic, which is Quercus Alba. Brian's sitting in his couch over there, he's practicing. But this stuff, guys, you know, Alba comes from the Scots Gaelic, Quercus Alba, which means white oak. The Latin Quercus Alba, which means white oak. And that basically comes from the type of wood that we're drinking. So this one's going to have a lot more of that vanilla honey sweetness to it. It's going to taste a lot more like a strong kick in the ass bourbon, if you like. And this one has done so well for us. And as we taste more and more people in the United States on this stuff, people are falling in love with it. You know, they're absolutely falling in love with the Abuna Alba. It's got everything that the American palate really needs, which is that sweetness, that honey flavor, a little bit of spice, and a little bit of that strength as well. Which, of course, I'm now learning from Ryan that you guys love down in Texas. All right.
Yeah. I just was going to tell you guys, comments are rolling in. Even the ladies are making comments about this. You know, it's really broad on who the audience is for who drinks great Scotch, great whiskey, and I think it's amazing to see the support, Caleb, that you guys have had for OGGN for us to make this happen, and then also for the kickoff of Viper Room, which we're very, you know, we're basically trailblazing on this event because this is the first.
So, I mean, one thing that I was going to say, you know, and this is something that I'm seeing more and more, is that women love Scotch just as much, if not more, than we do. You know, it's actually scientifically proven that women have a better sense of taste than men do. So, you know, for high quality products that have spent 16 years, 18 years, 20 years in the barrel, and, you know, people are spending a lot of money to bring this to your glass. then women are they're the perfect target for us, you know. That's the only thing we're missing here, lads. We're just missing a lady, you know, a lady's touch. So, but no, I think as we push on, and I know that this is something that's happening in oil and gas as well. The quantity of women is just increasing year on year. That's something that with the whiskey we're super chuffed with. You know, we're super happy with the fact that more and more women are feeling like they can get stuck into Scotch. And you know, one of my colleagues is our national brand ambassador is a woman. And she, quite frankly, has forgotten more about whiskey than I'll ever know. So it's great to learn from her as well. So feel free, you know, if you're sitting there at home and thinking, oh, I'd love to try that, you know, feel free to go out and get yourself a bottle and give it a go.
And so in our defense, we did have a lady that was going to join us, Joey King. Unfortunately, she got another job and was unable to be on the very first episode. So Ryan plays that role. Ryan, congratulations, Ryan.
Ryan stepped into that role.
I'm second fiddle. Wow.
Yeah. Well, hey, better second fiddle than none.
I thought I was.
And to Joey, compared to Joey, you are second. She's awesome.
But yeah, it's great. I mean, it's absolutely great to have you know, everybody trying this stuff, and I hope that everybody's enjoyed themselves. I'll pour one more before I sign off and give it back over to you, Warren. But guys, thank you so much for having me on, for giving us the time of day. I really appreciate it. I hope everybody's enjoyed the Scotch. I'm going to hang around and listen to Wade and Drew because they both look like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
They both have the vibe. You know, sitting there with a suit jacket and a waistcoat with a glass of Scotch in their hand, that's sophistication at its best. So, lads,
it's a regular Thursday here. And you know, one thing, for those of you who don't enjoy Scotch all the time, one thing to remember or really enjoy about tasting Scotch is the aftertaste. So it's not just as you drink it, as you taste it, but let it sit for a second and then press your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and it's a whole different taste sensation. So
I am sitting in the wrong place. I am sitting in the wrong place. I need to be over there with you guys. Well, you know, I for one had no knowledge whatsoever about single malt Scotch whiskey. So, Caleb, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And you know, and in between the next time we see you, I'm going to learn from Wade and everybody else a little bit more about this. So I appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much, lads. And as we say back home, sláinte, all right? Look after yourselves and stay safe.
Hey, before you go, Caleb, you got to tell everybody who's watching how they get a hold of you and your company if they want to make an order.
Yeah, I mean, I can, if you guys are looking for any Avalor Scotch, Jason Lee's asking for more cash strength releases there. Yeah, Jason, we hear you, man. They're all on their way. You can find us on Instagram at Aberlour_US. You can find me at Aberlour Chicago. And then if you guys are looking to speak to us and speak to us live and speak to the BAs and also use our where to buy tool, you can find us at aberlourallaccess.com. And like I say, Warren, I'll send you that link so that everybody can get on. Anyone that's got any questions at home, feel free to get in touch with us there because, you know, we're, like I say, we're on there 13 hours a day answering questions and talking about cocktails and talking about great Scotch. So thank you guys so much for having me on. Hopefully everybody can gift some Avalor this Christmas to their father-in-law or their boss, depending on what it is, which one it is. Ryan, I'll leave that to you. But once again, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
We do know what we're all getting for Christmas now, or giving to other people now. So thank you for clearing that up for me. I had no idea until just now.
Is Mark still with us? Mark, feel free to send me all three. I probably need to work through it a few more times to figure out which one I like the best. So,
And you know.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, guys. I know Mark LaCour will be joining us. He's rebooting. You know, with anything live, anything can happen, right? And I want to tell anyone who's watching this, whether you want to be a part of one of our VIPER rooms, or if you would like to begin connection to OGGN, you can always reach out to us. But these are unscripted moments. You know, we go live, and we don't really do anything other than just kind of forge ahead, and things happen.
Play with my camera.
Yeah, look at that. And I mean, right now it's been quite interesting because how wonderful is it for us to actually have such a great sponsor? I do want to send a shout out as we get started right now to the Pirate Syndicate, Russ Jones. If anyone is impressed with what we do online digitally to make these productions, you need to meet Russ Johns. He's the producer. He's also the one that runs the Pirate Syndicate, and you will for sure hear me shout him out a few times today. He makes it all possible for us.
Cheers to John.
So Brian, yeah, cheers to everyone. Brian, I want to just say, like, let's really get this thing started. Tell me about Viper Room, what it was like before we got into this kind of crazy pandemic situation where we have no choice but to go digital and really do it virtually.
Yeah, so Virtual Viper started because I wanted to have a drink with friends and bars are closed. So here we go. This is a way to have a drink with friends.
Okay.
But the original started, well, I've always had an interest in characters, if you will, from way back when. So if anyone remember USA Network, it was something about characters, you know. And as get into professional field, got influencers. And these are people that are movers and shakers, thought leaders, like everyone here and others, that are just fantastic. I mean, they share their knowledge. They make people like me look good. So, you know, and I use an example. I even did a little post on LinkedIn about Mark LaCour. So these are one of these people that you just know, or everybody knows, and if you don't, then everybody should know. That is just one of the best shares of knowledge there is, you know. And unfortunately, I never really got the chance to meet him, talk to him at any great lengths, you know. So we had one little quick lunch together. I saw him a couple of events after Nate, and that was it. So, you know, and there are many others like that. I mean, he wasn't the only one, but he was the one. There was also Wade. So before I even knew Mark, there was Wade. I knew him for, I don't know how long it's been now, at least 15 years, maybe more than that. We never worked for the same company. We never traveled together. We just kind of crossed paths many, many times, you know. So I wanted an opportunity to talk a little bit more with people like that. So once I came to Houston, so I lived in Ohio, which isn't, at least back then, wasn't a big oil and gas place. So once I came to Houston and I was, the family was still back in Ohio, really wanted to, you know, get to meet some people, talk to some people, went to many events, etc., whatever. But it always came down to I wanted to attend an event that you really didn't have to wear a name tag. You can share knowledge, relax, you know, have some really, really good drinks, and just, you know, enjoy each other's conversation. Now, we don't always have to agree. I mean, that's the great part about it, is that we're open, we're honest, and we learn. And it wasn't just my corner of the industry, which is typically upstream, but downstream, midstream. I'm more so in the land administration. I wanted to learn more about the other parts of upstream, the drilling, you know, and even, you know, the media portion of it. So that's where it came into with Viper. You know, and thinking about if anyone's ever watched the old classic movie, well, it's not a classic movie, but think about the times of the Algonquin circle, or table, if you will, round table. They call it the Vision Circle with Dorothy Parker and all these artists and everybody. And they used to gather around for like 10 years, just all these various artists, theater people, people that wrote books, people did this and that, and they all just gathered and, you know, just, you know, as I say, tell tall tales and, you know, little barbs and jabs at each other and just enjoy each other's company. They don't always agree. I mean, half of them were critics, so they don't agree with anybody. But it's just the fact that, you know, in the end, I value who you are. I value that you're sharing your knowledge. And so along with Dorothy Parker and the Vicious Circle, other things you may know from the past, if anybody has ever watched things like, let's see, Dinner for Five with John Favreau, with the media people, actors and actresses and stuff like that. Silicon Valley had their version of it at various high-end restaurants of their homes, and so I kind of pondered, and so back in 2015, I sent out an email. It's like, kind of stated all that kind of stuff. It said, even people in energy need to eat, right? The energy influencers and need to eat. So if you want to come to dinner, let's do dinner. So I just kind of invited some people, and we started gathering. And what was kind of cool was that every dinner, it was small and personal. Again, no name tags. We kind of meet each other, and before dinner, we have dinner together, and then we have this. It was just getting to know each other. But as we did so, we had a roundtable discussion. Thank you, of some serious issues. Whether it could be millennials, or it could be technology, or I tend to stray away from the political part of it, but sometimes it's social economics or something like that. So we had really, really good discussions on that. It could be anything. Expat stories. I mean, I've had dinners where there's just 4 people, and I've had 3 of them were expats, and I'm not one of them. So we heard or at least I did, the greatest stories ever. And so that's what it was. It was about sharing knowledge. And that's where kind of VIPER came from. So it stands for Very Influential People in Energy Roundtable. That's a good old acronym for VIPER. And so, some of the original VIPERs, if you will, would be Mark LaCour and Wade Brawley. And Ryan Ray came along later on. I think Paul, I don't know if he moved to a different city or not. I probably did. But if I probably should have invited him if I didn't. And I have no idea about the other people. But at the time, I didn't know you guys. But, I mean, a lot of great people I've met. So people kind of roll in, roll out. And so every month, there's kind of like an active list of around 50 people I would invite. And if they show up for dinner, it's like between 4, 15 people or so. Kind of limited towards that. And wherever we went was the VIPER room. So this is why the VIPER room. Doesn't matter if it's virtual or physical. This is the VIPER. So that's what we do. We enjoy each other's company and share knowledge.
So Brian, I want to thank you again for doing that. I know I thanked you before, but I thought that was a really big undertaking to create VIPER room and to invite everyone and coordinate it. And it was really worthwhile. I really enjoyed it because you never really knew who would be there. It'd be an interesting assortment of people. And like Brian said, it could be, might be just 10 people. It might have been 30 people, but it was always a really different mix and people that I wouldn't normally run into and would have a different perspective on the industry or whatever our topic was that night. So again, Brian, thank you for doing that. And I really have met some really interesting people through the VIPER room, and thank you.
Well, I appreciate that because, at the end of the day, that's what we try to do is, people kind of brought along either other people, invited other people. There were some people that, we had some really nice drinks and ate some really nice restaurants, which was sometimes hard for some people, but we had a way to get around that. So we had a table full of CEOs. We had grad students, people that were still in college, some people that were just, working around. It didn't matter who you were. And that was the whole point of it, was trying to reach out to all the different corners, if you will, of the industry. And no matter what position, let's just have a nice conversation, drinks, and dinner together. And the end result was to just share knowledge, because I certainly don't know very much about the industry. I mean, as much as I think I know, I don't know very much. So Mark LaCour knows tons. Ryan Ray knows tons. I mean, everybody knows tons about different stuff. You can point out with Mark and media and before the media part, a whole lot of other stuff. Ryan Ray, if I want Mr. International, that's Ryan Ray, give me the worldwide view. And then Wade, if I want technology, if I want to think outside the box, there we go. And Drew, I've recently met. And actually, we have a common client, and actually, they love him. And so there you go. So, everyone has something to share. I mean, even you, Warren,
Well, that's great. And yeah, this is a great segue to get into our panel. You know, from what I knew from the very beginning was what Viper Room was doing, you know, in person, a submersive kind of sport where you guys were able to get together, share information. And when this came across Mark and I's desk, this idea of broadcasting it, and then you add in who our sponsor is, our co-sponsor, Russ Jones, who is the Pirate Syndicate, right? He's the one that brought to OGGN this concept of, hey, let's go live stream. Let's not just go LinkedIn. Let's not just do Facebook. Let's put this live stream everywhere. And you take that digital capability and the demand of OGGN. And when we came across the Viper Room and the concept of sharing information, sharing relationships, and more importantly, talking about topics that are timely, we knew this was a great fit. And with that, I want to get to our panel. I'd like each of you guys to take a moment to introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you do it, and more importantly, why you made this big commitment to join us tonight for this very first live stream of the Viper Room. I'll start with you guys, Wade and Drew, since y'all are together. Land Vantage.
Okay. Well, the name of the company is actually Land Information Services.
Oh, sorry, I was reading off the title there.
Well, yeah.
The product is Land Vantage.
Land Vantage is the software platform that we support. It's our product, but lately it has become really more profound than Land Information Services. People recognize that name more, so I think that's why Drew used that in the caption. And also, it's catchier, don't you think? It's kind of a cool thing.
It is. And Ryan
I'm not
Ray,
sure I like it.
I'm sorry, Drew.
Yes, we're just natural competitors, okay? But we're also friends. And I got to, let me, full disclosure. So we're competitors as well as friends, and he's also been a longtime mentor of mine. So there we go.
Terrific. Drew, did you want to say something? I don't want to skip you.
No, that's exactly right. And so I worked in oil and gas and land admin at a company here in Oklahoma City for a long time, but Wade was my VP there. And so that was kind of my first real initiation into land admin and land in the oil and gas world. And to what Brian was saying about going on those business trips and going to NAPE and going to those different conventions and being able to sit and talk with people that had been in the industry for years and years, those were the things that really resonated with me. And to be able to sit down and hear those stories and to see that passion that people had for it, that was addictive. And I think everybody on this panel would say the exact same thing. It's so fun to be around something that's so just invigorating. Whenever Wade started Land Information Services, I knew that I wanted to be a part of it. And whenever they started the Land Vantage process, that's whenever I moved over and began doing business development here. And it really has been, it's been one of those things of, again, what Brian said, you find people that make impacts in your career and you want to be a part of that and you want to be a part of building your own legacy. And that's what we really are trying to do here, of really being able to bring that vibrancy back to kind of the software era. And that's really the fun part of being able to take part in something like this.
Thank you, Wade. Drew, Wade, thank you. Ryan Ray, let's talk about what you do and like what your experiences have been with Viper Room and obviously this kind of exciting launch that we're doing today.
Ryan Ray hands me notes. That's what he does.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, even though I am second fiddle. I should have been on, I guess, next month. I'm a month ahead. I appreciate that. It's it's good to be here. And so, I'm currently in the process of selling my oil field service business. We've historically done pipeline engineering work for oil and gas companies. In the process of selling that, I own a media company and produce a 3 to 4 times a week newsletter talking about political, geopolitical stuff. I'm on the board of advisors for the George H.W. Bush Foundation for U.S.-China Relations, and also have some dealings in Africa as well. So that's kind of who I am and what I do. And I've managed fighters and all kinds of other stuff. Depends on how far down the bunny hole we want to go.
That's true. Mark LaCour, I'm going to hit you up.
So Drew and Wade, we're in the process of negotiating with NAPE about bringing our live stream to NAPE this year. So we may be able to do this again in at the NAPE format, which I think would be incredible. Mark LaCour, editor-in-chief, Oil and Gas Global Network. I honestly just came for the free whiskey. Warren told me that we're going to get free drinks. And that's a surefire way to get me in.
So did I.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for, lads.
But I tell you this much, for all the people that join us online, welcome. This is new to us. We still are working the kinks out of it. We love all of y'all. You know, our audiences are everything to us. Ryan will attest to that. You know, Ryan has a very actually, Ryan, how many podcasts do you have? You 3?
3 active. Got a new one coming Monday, so it'll be 4 on Monday. Or 5? No, and I've got 2 coming, so 5. It'll be 5 starting next week.
And Mark, what do you got? Like double the? No. Sorry, I didn't mean to show you up there.
I don't want to get into competition numbers, but a little bit more than 3. But anyway, you know, we're all family here, right? So it's just awesome to see everybody here. I'm really interested to get into the discussions. Big shout out to Callum for providing a little bit of social lubricant here. The last one was incredible. I had to drop off at audio problems, but literally the last one was decadent. I am actually, I'm not a Scotch drinker, but now I am. So Colin, you've at least moved one person over from wine to Scotch. But Warren, let's keep going with it.
My work here is
it may sound bad, but Cal, you turn me on.
I thought it was a character I liked, but now I'm not sure.
I wish I could say that you were the first man that's ever told me that, but you're not. These whiskey tastings do a lot for a lot of people.
Well, I'm going to put on Paul Guillory. I have him on my cell phone because we had some audio issues on the digital. So I'm going to bring him on right now. Paul, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm having, some issues hearing because I'm not connected to the actual room. I'm improvising, like you said, through a phone. So you deal with what you have to deal with, make the best of it. The VIPER Room invitation, I want to thank Brian for inviting me. I was not familiar with the type of forum, but, since COVID hit and we're in a pandemic, this virtual networking and virtual presenting is very, very common. I've been in many of these type meetings. My background is in land administration, and I have a very extensive background and probably one of the older gentlemen that's online right now. But, I've been on the division order side, the lease contract side, and I've also been on the consulting and software side. I worked for P2 Energy Solutions for 12 years. So what gets me motivated about things like this is actually talking about our individual contributions, because a lot of times people don't really know how to connect, or maybe even don't even know what question they want to ask. And when you bring a group of people together to just kind of brainstorm and talk about their experience, ideas start to surface and questions start to surface. So for me, being in front of people, being part of the group that's been involved in looking at best practices, looking at software implementations, not just the way that you implement it, but how do people respond to them? Because putting a new piece of software in front of somebody is not a solution. Many times it's a problem. And it's the people's attitude about that software that can make or break certain things. So looking at all the dynamics of that, looking at how we work together, how the different pieces come together and we're able to do what we do, that's the amazing thing. So just the idea of sharing ideas and networking and connecting in known ways and sometimes in surprising kind of ways. So that's why I'm here. So I'm not going to elaborate too much because of my audio and that type of situation. But
so I'm going to elaborate for Paul by saying Paul's got the soft skills, if you will. He's got the ability, and not only as to technology, but and technology is going to be one of the things for future VIPER Room episodes that we'll be talking about, oil and gas, software technologies, if you will. But there are other factors that are involved. We're talking knowledge sharing, just knowledge sharing in general today. But there's also at every company, whether you're technology, oil and gas producer, or what, and I've been on both sides of them, For as long as Paul has been in the industry, I've probably been in the industry. We both been consultants. We both worked for producers. We both been around, if you will. And we kind of crossed paths for about a year working at the same company, although we were on different projects and really never really saw each other. But it's the other parts of Paul outside of just what I can do. You know, Paul and I can do pretty much the same thing. But then he brings forth these soft skills. And not only the soft skills of being able to talk to people, train people very well, and very personable, to talk about the culture, talk about leadership. He can talk about diversity. He can talk about accountability. He can talk about all these other factors. And outside of technology, if you will, but those are still very important. So it doesn't matter what technology you got. If you don't, if you're not personable, if you cannot get along with somebody else, if you cannot do that with other people, if you cannot go through the change management of even a software implementation, then it will not be successful. So when I was thinking about people bringing together people for this conversation, I mean, Paul is one of those that can bring whatever everybody else does, and then he brings these other aspects that people like me don't have a clue of where to even start, and he is just the best at it. So thanks, Paul, for joining us.
The first time I met you was at a seminar. We kind of spoke at a bunch of different seminars. We were on the same circuit, and you gave a really good class on, I think the topic was being thankful or being grateful or something like that. And, you got all these classes and they're all very technical and they're all kind of, self-promoting, if you will, about their product or about what they do. But Paul's subject was completely genuine, sincere, about being thankful for those you work with and being grateful. And I thought that was really cool. So thank you, Paul.
So, okay, hold on.
But I'm all out.
All right, I'm gonna give Paul the mic here. Hold on one second. There you go, Paul.
Yeah, many times what happens, communication is really important, but many of us don't really have effective communication. We have very ineffective communication. And a lot of times, rather than taking time out to listen to others, we want others to hear our opinion. So we're not hearing anything that the other person is saying. And many times that sets us up to fail, not just ourselves, but any team that we might be on. And it might even permeate into the department that we work in, the company. And a lot of times the servant leadership attitude is what I like to bring, because it means that my title is not important. It's what am I giving? I may be asking you for something, but what am I giving back? What am I actually collaborating with you on? The collaboration is so important. And many times, so many of us get tunnel vision into whatever it is we're doing. We forget about the big picture, and the big picture can eat us alive. And so that's why the communication, the soft skills, the attitude, getting involved, dealing with change management, not allowing the change to really overpower you, but actually moving through it and talking about it and finding solutions. All of that, I think, is really, really important.
Thank you, Paul. And so, guys, I'm going to segue y'all into something that I knew Brian really, he was like, look, we got to touch on this. It's the first episode. I want to get into it. I want people to hear what we've done together. But I'm going to hand over the mics to all of you. I just want to have an open dialogue. But here's what Brian said. He said, when COVID hit, there were so many adjustments that had to be made. There was so much innovation that had to be forced. And even Mark LaCour has talked about this again and again, how the philosophy of success right now in today's marketplace is put your foot on the gas, make things happen. You've got to change the way you do business in certain ways, especially even with marketing and the way people are connecting and mentorship. And I'm talking about even at the field, like what we're seeing again and again come up is how technology is driving the adjustment, and it's driving the way people are adapting to what's going on today. But it's ultimately not a bad investment in any way in whatever you're doing right now. If COVID just poof was gone, what you're seeing now is relationships have been strengthened. People have updated the way they do business. And with that, Brian, I'll throw it over to you. I'm going to hit the mute button for a while because I just want to soak this in because you guys have done so much. And I think that's the dialogue. Paul, I'll have you ready for whenever you want to talk up to the mic. So,
well, yeah. First of all, so before this launched, so I had VIPER being a physical dinner way back when, and I wanted to start a podcast. And my inspiration there were the Ryan Rays of the world and Mark LaCour, having a podcast. So instead of a dinner between having 4, sometimes 16, 20 people, I wanted to have a podcast like Ryan and Mark LaCour. That never happened. That was back in 2019. So for a year and a half, I still want to do something with VIPER, right? So Mark LaCour and OGGN launched their live stream with podcasters, oil and gas podcasters all over the world. It was kind of fascinating. And, you learn about people, you meet people that you never knew of, and you really, really should. And so that evening, I kind of wrote up my little VIPER, what I call virtual VIPER, little proposal, I forget what I call it, to Mark and send it out there. Because, that was the inspiration I needed, was that, his live stream episode. And I had no idea if he was ever going to do it. Back then the caption said an annual live stream. So, I thought it was like the one and only. And now I'm sure he's got many of them, and he does. But that was the inspiration. I want to do a podcast. I still want to learn from others. And more importantly, everyone here, the knowledge sharers, I want others to learn from you yourself. Whether or not it's the technology or the culture or this or that, the tangibles and the intangibles are all so important. So once again, Mark became the inspiration, and so I approached him and we have this collaboration. And I'll let everyone speak as to how to share that knowledge, the extra distance, if you will. It was much easier to do things in person. I actually love doing things in person because I'm not a phone person. This is much better than a phone. It's kind of like the in-between place, but I'd rather meet people face to face and have those conversations. But so how is everyone doing it? And so some people are doing things maybe a little bit extraordinary. I mean, even myself. I'm a consultant. I travel around wherever my client is. Thank you. And so, we're physically there in a client's office, wherever that might be most of the time. But right now, we've even had to adapt. I've had to adapt. I mean, my current project's a year-long project. Awesome clients. Wade and Drew should know that. They have the same client. And it's just worked out really, really well remotely, surprisingly. But that's because of things like this. We see each other, we talk to each other. Who knows? Doorbell might ring, a dog might bark. We don't care. We're just very, very personable. And that's what it comes down to, being personable and genuine. You got to be genuine about whatever it is.
Aren't you finding you're able to get more done? You're able to make more contacts now?
I mean, really, because you save kind of all that time traveling out and about. I mean, it is really still, I think being a person you still got to do every once in a while. I still enjoy that. There is a value to that. So when we're talking about anything, we're talking about value. I mean, and we'll get to Ryan Ray here in a second, but he's been doing a lot of traveling around lately, and I'm sure he's done that for a reason, because a phone call is not going to be suffice. But so there's a value in doing that. There's also value in still keeping the conversation going, keeping the knowledge sharing going. And one of the things, okay, so with VIPER, I was being a little selfish, simply because I invited people for dinner, invitation only. And that was it. We had dinner. No one else knew the conversation. So here, being a little bit less selfish, we're sharing with other people, which is great. I mean, I love that fact. But, it was nice, having dinner together, and I was just learning all that stuff by myself, But this is a much better thing, and I'm really glad we have the opportunity with collaborating with OGGN to share this. Before I move on to everybody else, I want to read just one quote from Paul, which kind of summarizes all this about dialogue. So bear with me. Dialogue allows us to move beyond polite and empty words and beyond the fears and pain that keeps us disconnected. Dialogue moves us from being uninformed to informed, from informed to concerned, from concerned to active. And that's what this is. It's taking that to the next step, to the next level, if you will. And whether or not you disagree or agree, it doesn't matter. You know, we respect each other and our knowledge, our understandings, our values, and that's what we go away from this. In the end, we're still all friends. We still all share our knowledge together. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. So let's. How is Wade and Drew sharing their knowledge these days?
Well, we've
In
done
your
a lot.
studio.
We've done a lot of educational seminars, both just with our employees and with anyone who wants to join. So we've even done things like we've taken, some of the seminars, webinars provided by AAPL, NALTA, and NADOA, and we rebroadcast them. And I'll assign someone to proctor each of those classes, and that way they can play all or some part of the presentation and engage everyone in discussion. So it's better than just everyone watching it at the same time. You have someone.
You mind? I did one with Alto recently, Joey King, who was supposed to be here instead of Ryan, but that was the Houston Alto Association, Houston Title Analysts.
Yeah. And so that way it's more interactive, and that's been really helpful. And so we've taken advantage of those educational opportunities and shared those and discussed those among our employees. And then I think that Drew's entire career has been devoted to this particular moment where we have to broadcast, because he has he loves all the lights and the cameras and so he's done a really good job in our studio, our mobile studio, if you will. We film in different parts of our building. We have 2 buildings, and so with his help, his staff, he's been able to create these wonderful environments and teaching opportunities, and also the meetings we have with our clients and potential clients. So again, we're able to have more meetings with people in Midland and Houston and Dallas in a day than we could before. And so I'd like to have Drew just talk a little bit about his vision, what we've accomplished here, and et cetera.
I think whenever this all really started happening, in February and March, and we really saw it taking off, that was right around the time whenever we were getting ready to launch our new flagship Land Vantage program. So we were so excited, and this was like 7 years in the making. And all the things that come with that are, we wanted to have these big launch parties, and we wanted to see all of the people that could be clients and potential clients, and balloons celebrate with people around like the Oklahoma City area, and
release the doves,
do a traveling show, Houston, Midland, all those different places. And we just like everybody else on this call and everybody else listening, we saw that kind of come to a screeching halt pretty quick. And so we had to either come to grips with, hey, things are going to be a lot different, or we had to come to grips with, hey, this is an opportunity that we can do something with. And so what we did is with the fantastic staff that we have here, we started seeing what everyone's talents were, and what video processing people could do, and what social media people could do. And we started figuring out kind of the game plan of how we can launch a product virtually, and how we can get a audience virtually, and kind of do the same thing that these podcasts are, of how do we reach the most people by using all of those different social media venues that we all have access to. So we really took our like Wade and I would be on a plane to Houston just about every week or every other week there for a while, these last few years. And we took that same time and effort that we would be spending going to the airport to how can we make the most impactful soundstage, how can we make the most beautiful production for a product such as what we're pushing out. And we really were so happy with the kind of how people were encouraged by being able to get these different videos and be able to get these different links and be able to contact us in different ways. And it really opened our eyes to a lot of different opportunities that we've been missing out on before. So this is just one of those things of where you've had to kind of roll with the punches and had to find different ways that we can find success just even in very difficult situations. And that's what I've always liked about being able to talk to people just like this, of the people that are kind of the innovators are the ones that really jump into and find different ways to find that success. And so we do mobile studio, and we try to find ways to keep our audience engaged. And it really, it's paid off multiple times over. And to the credit of like what Brian and what Paul had said earlier, of we can still make those connections, and we can still make those really, really lasting friendships, just in a much different venue right now.
Yeah, and Mark, Warren, Ryan, what you guys do has been so helpful. I mean, we've all participated in podcasts, and it's a great way to reach out to people and feel part of the community, most importantly.
Definitely.
So we appreciate the work you do and the opportunities that you present to us.
Yeah, I do think it's amazing. I don't know if anybody's tried to buy audio or video gear since COVID-19 lockdown had. You can't buy it.
No,
earlier this year, we had a live stream with all of our fellow oil and gas podcasters from around the world, and we had our vendors on. So we had the Audio Technica, Zoom digital recorders, all that stuff, and they're killing it. The thing I'm most excited about, how many people who during normal times would have never posted a video on LinkedIn are now doing it because they have no choice. So the creators are coming out the woodwork, and it's a wonderful, beautiful, just gorgeous thing, you know. And I just think it's great that so many people are out there using technology to share what they know to help other people improve whatever they're trying to improve. And so I think part of the benefit, part of the good thing, if you want to look at it that way, of this COVID-19 lockdown is a lot of people who never would have pressed record now have no choice but to press record, and we all benefit from it. I think it's wonderful.
And Mark, you've been doing this pre-COVID for quite a while now, sharing on your podcast and more recently with the live stream. So you've kind of been ahead of the rest of us, whether you knew it or not.
Okay, well, I have to give a shout out to Russ Jones real quick, our sponsor for today, and then I'm gonna kick it back to you, Mark. So if you're watching this and you're wondering how do we pull this off, you got to look up Russ Jones. He's all of our friends. He's connected with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and the name of the show, this platform, is the Pirate Syndicate. So with that, Mark, I'll kick it back to you. I want to give recognition where it's due.
Thanks, Warren.
And it is due. Anybody that wants to do a live stream, it's a technology challenge and it's a project management challenge. Russ handles all of that for us. So if anybody out there wants to start live streaming, don't try it yourself. Just reach out to Russ. It's so much easier and quicker and so much more professional.
Yeah, short story. I'm going to interrupt Mark right here. So last night we did a little preview with stuff, and I had like the worst camera ever. I mean, it was so grainy, and so Russ was telling me about that it was my camera problem, which I had no idea. So my poor client, who may be on listening with us today, for like the past year and a half, has had this very bad video of me. And it took Russ, and then later on my teenage son, who has a background much like Ryan Ray and Mark Lepore with all the soundproofing behind them and all these gadgets, had explained to me about having a good camera. So Russ Jones, thank you very much for correcting something which I've been, unfortunately, my client has been dealing with for the past year and a half. Go on, Mark.
Yeah, but you know, Warren, you're a creator on our network, right? So you share knowledge of other people, other people's companies, their products, their services, what they do on the Pitch podcast. So I mean, even you as a host of one of our shows is part of the value chain of sharing knowledge. It's just a beautiful thing.
Well, and the thing about all of this, like why I sign up for any opportunity like this, is that we're only as good as what we know and who we know sometimes. And so, like for me, every interview that I do on OGGN, I'm learning about a product, I'm learning about a service, and more importantly, I'm learning these people that we are connected to that have high levels of integrity. And what happens is every time we do an episode, I get reached out to by guests of other shows, as well as my own show of shows past, where they're saying, hey, can you make an introduction? I just want to talk to this guy or this lady to just do a deal together. and sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But the idea is especially in today's environment, what are we doing to attraction market? What are we doing to where when people are researching us, they're being able to find out what our expertise is, who we know. And this is really a platform that does that, because right now in today's world, in this gig economy, the first thing someone does in a cold call or when they're trying to research your software like Vantage, I mean, what they're doing first is they're Googling it and they're finding it, and they want to see videos about it, and they want to be able to, from the comfort of their home, to have information. And so when Brian and Mark were just starting to collaborate with this, I thought this show right here, because it's not going to be like, it's not going to have some super rigid agenda. It's going to be about, again, a very flexible content that's based on what's meaningful, what's helpful, and what does good for the industry. It was a no-brainer for me.
So short story, making it personal and all that good stuff. So way back when I was talking about Nape and Mark and stuff. So Nape, one of the events, you begin at the Hilton Hotel, you end at the Hilton Hotel in the lobby and stuff. And so there have been some great fireside chats there with some CEOs of companies like Enervest, et cetera. And those were just awesome. I mean, there were small groups, nice fireside chats. And guess who does it technology-wise? Wade and Drew. When I saw they had a post soon after they had their studio in there, we're having a fireside chat with Wade, the CEO of LIS. There you go. And I just thought that was just brought me back to the name. Again, being physically there at the fireside chats with some CEOs. And here we go. We're having a fireside chat with Wade. And everybody knows that presidents way back when as well did those fireside chats. And so taking that personal feeling and that connection with people and bringing it to many others where it really wasn't possible before. I mean, I think that's just extraordinary. So that's awesome.
Hey, Brian, I want to back up because maybe some of the listening audience has no idea what we're talking about when we say NAPE. So NAPE is North American Prospect Expo. It's a very infamous, is that the right word? Conference. Infamous, and it's the only conference I know where people are coming to buy or sell stuff, but also infamous to the NAPE parties. I've been a victim of quite a few of those myself. So it's a conference that's done twice a year here in Houston, and it looks like it's coming back this year as a hybrid event, so half in person, half online. But yeah, just kind of in case the audience didn't know what NAPE was, we kept bringing it up.
Sorry. I mean, I'm one of those that everywhere I go, I always have like a glossary or dictionary because of all the acronyms in oil and gas, and NAPE would be one of the North American Petroleum Expo. Prospect. See, I even get it wrong right there. So yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, I'm one of those people that actually never been to NAPE because I was always traveling around with clients and stuff. I was always with clients, and so my only availability to meet people like Mark was in those infamous after parties.
But you know what? I'd love to get Ryan's input. So to your point earlier, Brian, Ryan's been traveling a good bit. One of the things that's really cool about our industry is it's truly global, right? And so our industry is all over the place, but we get exposed to different cultures, different ways of thinking, and to our panel of knowledge sharing, even different ways that people share knowledge, right? Because the culture of that country also dictates how they interact with each other. So Ryan, where were you just recently?
So I went to Milwaukee, Chicago, Cleveland, Philadelphia, New York, Trenton, Delaware, and Baltimore. And then I was in DC for the election.
Wow. What was that like?
God.
And so what happened, Mark, was I left on a Tuesday, flipped to Milwaukee, and I was gone for a week, come back on the following Thursday, so a little bit over a week. And then I flew out Sunday before the election and flew home Thursday. I write this newsletter, and so I wanted to talk to people about on the ground. What are they thinking? Here I am giving my thoughts, but the vaccine, is that going to impact people, or will the election change stuff? All these things that I may think are important. I was curious what people who drive Ubers, who work at hotels, who work at restaurants, what do they think is going to change? Does it really matter? What does matter to them? And so I learned a lot just talking to average folks, just like me and you, who are just a different part of the country and how they perceive things. And so that's why I went. I wanted to get out and just talk to as many people as I could. And I was kind of disappointed by the lack of people that were actually out in some of those cities. I thought more people would be out because down here in the South, people kind of out and about, especially my little town of Granbury. So that was kind of caught me off guard. But yeah, no, and then I'll kind of wrap up this. I stayed in D.C. and if you don't find, I'll see the address. I was 3 blocks from the White House on the same street as the White House was. Not Pennsylvania, but the backside, whatever street that is, K Street or whatever. Anyways, 3 blocks down. I stayed there for $120 a night. And so I just walked 3 blocks down. Those were the little churches that Trump walked out to. I was 3 blocks down from that. And so, so I just walked down there, see them kind of protesting and stuff, and interview people and come back. And so, as you know, Mark, it's one thing to read, study, talk, but to talk to people on the ground, their perspective is just different. It just is. Whether you agree or not, it's kind of irrelevant. And so that's what I wanted to do, and it was a valuable experience.
And that's what I love about this. I mean, you get people like Ryan that are out and about, boots on the ground, finding things out, sharing that knowledge. I mean, who else around here has been doing that? Certainly not me. So, again, something like this is, and Ryan brings that perspective, and you got Paul Gilroy that brings that much deep perspective, but in a different area, not physically, but emotionally, into our psyche, into our development, and way with the technology, Mark with the media. So again, the knowledge sharing that Ryan and Paul and everyone is doing here is just extraordinary. I'm not sure how many people can do what Ryan just did. And I think that's just fantastic. So a lot of respect to you guys.
And what I think is interesting is the human condition to need to connect. So, that's why we go to these conferences. We need to network, we need to connect. And when that's not possible, people kind of go stir crazy, but it wasn't long before venues like this started cropping up. We were all having Zoom and team meetings and whatever the platform, where all of us would get together and talk. And so that's really necessary to network, to exchange ideas. And so I think it's interesting, just, the human condition, how we're able to accomplish that or satisfy that need to connect, when there are circumstances like COVID-19 out there. We're able to overcome that. We're able to do something like this.
It's interesting when you say that, because putting out podcasts on a weekly basis, it's hard to solicit feedback because the forum isn't natural for that. So you have to really kind of beg people to email back in. Newsletters are a little bit easier because they're just replying to the email. And oddly enough, I've got some pretty angry emails, but I've appreciated that because at least people are
listening.
It's like, okay, when you record the podcast, you can see the download numbers, they're out there, but you don't know who they are or where they are. But when they email you back, at least you're like, okay, we can go at it here for a few minutes. And so it's weird just working through that because it's a new media outlet for me, and kind of understanding that I really do appreciate the feedback, and I really try to encourage it because you want to know. I've had people send me stuff like, hey, you said this, did you mean that? I'm like, oh, well, now that I read it that way, it's like that's helpful. So as Brian said, you learn from people, but also the need for connection is really been amplified, I think, during this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and anyone that's listening to this, when I brought this group together, it's really, everyone here is sharing knowledge. They're sharing it from different perspectives, different physical places, different depths. Ryan Ray, Mr. Worldwide over here, Mark for media, and I'm sure much else. Wade, I consider, technology, thinking outside the box. Paul Gilroy is thinking about people and how, the effect of technology, even with people and people with other people, the relationships, development, and stuff like that. So everyone here has a unique perspective. Even Warren's got a unique perspective. And so that's why he is, the beautiful face of OGGN.
Hey, thank you. Paul wants to make a quick comment here. I got him.
Yeah, just piggybacking on this whole thing about networking and the need to do that. It's kind of interesting. Many times people think you network to see what is it that I can get from somebody else. I'm looking for something and I'm selfish in my interests and I want to get all the information that I can, all the knowledge I can. However, for me, what I have learned and what I have become, I've become a connector. many times I'm talking to someone and it's not so much that they might think they need something from me. However, I will actually be the one to connect them to someone that they would never have met. And so, and that person many times can give them the answer they're looking for better than I can. So in the process of networking and getting knowledge, I think it's important that many times, because of the people that we know, we can actually connect people together that would never have come together except through us.
Yeah.
And that is actually one of the things, one of the outcomes. Like I said, I started VIPER maybe a little selfishly because I wanted to learn from other people. But one of the things that happened is exactly what Paul said, is that people at the dinner, when I had that first dinner, I was actually surprised by how little the 16 people that came knew each other. And so they formed relationships, had lunches together, and some of them appeared on other people's podcasts since then. And you know, there are a lot of relations built from that. And that was surprisingly, pleasantly surprising thing that happened with that. So that is very true.
Yeah, the term I like to use is building bridges. And so Paul was a bridge builder, or is a bridge builder. And that's really important. And in my volunteer work I do, where I work, you know, with the homeless and other things, there are a lot of organizations out there that help people. And part of what an organization I'm firmly in Scoutston does is provide that bridge building. Like, there are all these organizations here. There's no need to create something new. Let's connect these resources together so they're helping each other and sharing knowledge. So bridge building, very important.
Yep. Can I share one more thing? I want to share the fact that before this pandemic happened, there's a friend of mine that's with Alter, and she has a company called Encompass Energy Services, but her name is Damaris Quinjano. And Damaris and I were both part of Alter, and we were talking about the whole concept of mentoring. And many times, good or bad, there are people that can't find mentors in the company they work for, either because the company doesn't have an organized mentoring structure, or the company's too small, or whatever. So what she and I had talked about, was actually starting something like that with Alta, and then the pandemic hit. But we're going to revisit that once this pandemic is over.
You can do it now. You can communicate via Zoom and Teams. Mentor that way.
That's true. But to me, I think it's important. The mentoring piece, I think I like face-to-face better than just the Zoom piece.
True.
You know, because the relationship is very, okay, I have a relationship with you via Zoom. However, the relationship is very different when you're sitting in front of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Good shout out to Damaris. So Damaris is also a VIPER from way back when. Attended many of our dinners. We've had lots of great conversations. And you'll probably get to know Damaris a lot more. Hopefully she'll be on the show in the future, because she is an extraordinary person. So, and it was kind of funny when I sent her a message a long time ago, and then she kind of responded later on about VIPER, and it just happened to be that Paul was on virtual VIPER. They had lunch together, and there you go. Small world. Neither knew the other person VIPER-wise, but here you go. You had lunch, and there's a connection. I mean, it's a small world, big industry. So let's all do what we're doing, and that's connecting and sharing knowledge with one another.
So here's something I'll tell you. I just got back from a business trip. When it comes to collaborating with a team, and it comes to like create the creative process, and really there's certain things you want to do it in 4D. I mean, it's, getting on a Zoom is so impersonal. And then on top of that, because I work with so many different businesses and leadership, what you notice too sometimes is in this virtual reality that we're operating in, the connection to your teammates and your employees can be reduced a bit, right? You have people for the first time ever working from home, feeling isolated, and that rapport that's so necessary for motivation when it comes to leading a team, and in that ability to put people in a room and let them share ideas openly. Like, just think about this for right now. Ryan Ray right now could wish he could have said 15 things, but he's being courteous, right? if we were sitting at a table together, he could just say something and in real time. It would just.
That's true. I just interrupt you, right? Just like Ryan would.
Yes, that's right. So that's the beauty of 4D, right? So anyway, just something I would also say is that what an interesting thing to know. Like someone like Ryan Ray is traveling and doing these business trips, while when you go to the top resorts in San Antonio, where normally you have thousands and thousands of people, there's 10 cars in the parking lot and they're at 4% capacity.
And I think that's a good takeaway that you bring up, Warren, is that sharing knowledge is not the same for everybody. It's not the same for every part of the business. So you get Ryan that has got boots on the ground, because that's how he's going to collect his data, if you will. And he's going to then disseminate that data to his audience, to other people, that they can use that as information that's actionable. That's how he does it. And Paul, probably the best way as well is being in person. So technology can help save you time. It can save you the energy. It can save you the cost. But sometimes you need to be there in person. And there are other aspects. I mean, I'm really kind of surprised with the project I'm on. Again, awesome client, but that everything has worked out so well being 100% remotely, whereas we would have been 100% the other way. And so, and that takes just doing things like this, being on video. Who cares? A dog barks, a doorbell rings, something's going to be delivered. It's personable. It's going to be that, which, for me, it brings it down to a little bit more personable, because you're not sitting in a conference room. You're not sitting in an office. You're getting to know people on a deeper level, more personal level. Things are what they are, just like it is now. Cameras go out, microphones, whatever. It is what it is, and that's life. So in a way, technology takes it away and brings it to you. And that's what it is. For anybody that's here, anybody that's listening, the takeaway is that we're learning, we're sharing knowledge in many, many different means and methods, and we can learn from each other, and that's what we're doing now.
Hey, Warren, we have a couple of good comments here. So from Dave Weaver, we got Brian Mond, great quote as to the purpose and certainty fits. And
okay, Dave Weaver knows his liquor, and he is one person that we got to have on so he can introduce us to other great drinks between that and the cigar. So thank you, Dave.
We got a comment from Michael Ranger. The connection is why I start the ES Group, getting people to connect. And I think that's so powerful. One of the things that we do as an organization in our events, either virtual events, live events, whatever, is to Paul's point, we try to connect people with no benefit to ourselves, right? If you want to know somebody, if I can make an introduction to it, I always do it. And that ends up coming back to you in droves, right? I don't expect anything to come back to me, but just being open and honest and transparent and trying to help others without worrying about yourself is probably the most powerful thing you can do. I do have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask the panel, just get y'all to chime in. So this crazy year, we've been locked down. We've done things differently, a lot differently. When things start getting back to normal, what are y'all going to keep? Like this live stream thing, we would have never started this if it wasn't for the lockdown this year, and now it's a part of our revenue stream. So it's something new to us that we're going to keep. I'm just kind of curious what some of the things that y'all are going to keep that y'all have learned through this year.
That was a point I was going to make a moment ago, is that, meeting in person and training in person and mentoring in person is preferred, but there's no going back. Things have changed, and everything has changed. I mean, I was in the middle of a contract to build another building for an expanding workforce, and now, before I signed that dotted line, the quarantine hit. We're all working from home, and we're realizing this is working fine. There's some downside. I mean, you have to over communicate in order to keep everyone coordinated and moving in the right path. So we have kind of a hybrid. We do have people in the office, but we're not at full capacity. We may never be again. And so we just have to accept that everything has changed. And there's going to have to be a mixture of the online and the in-person, whether it's a conference, whether it's NATE, whether it's day-to-day work. So, we have to learn to adjust to that. Because early on I was thinking, we'll endure this and then we'll get back to normal. Well, there's going to be a new normal, and we just have to get used to that.
Yep, right there.
Yeah, I agree. Warren, I do want to say something again, but right now, I'm in a situation at ELG where I spend 2 days a week in the office and the other days at home. And so we're trying to get as close to 50% capacity as we can. And so far, so good. However, Wade, it's, when you're in the office, it's like the people that you might want to communicate with face to face, that's their day to be at home. So you have to deal with a hybrid situation. I think that will become, at least for now, that will be new normal.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. I agree. I mean, I personally, I come into the office every day, and Drew does too. Several of us do, but not everyone does, and they're kind of staggered, and so it does seem to slow some things down. But that's the challenge that we can overcome. We just have to figure out new ways of monitoring and meeting, tracking, communicating.
Yeah,
it's not easy. I agree.
Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting, Mark, is assuming things get back to normal with the vaccine next year, or start getting back to normal, is it's not what we're going to keep necessarily, but it's what we're going to add. Okay, and so if you listen to what Wade's saying, and I take it at face value, and I believe everything he's saying. Okay, Wade will then looking to add more travel, right? So he's at whatever capacity now, and he's like, okay, do we add travel? So I think that's the thing as we move forward is the things that we've kind of forgotten about. Are the meetings, are the lunches really valuable? Are they not? Well, the first time your competitor goes out and takes a client to lunch and they land a good contract, guess what? You're back to going out to lunches every day. You're back to going to traveling. And so I think we'll be adding stuff. And then the thing that's going to get lost, unfortunately, might be the content creation. But as you and me and the other people who do content creation know, that has such a long life expectancy. It's around for so long, for better or worse, for some of the stuff I've said, that I hope people don't abandon that. And so I think that they'll be adding stuff because they will be getting back to more in-person meetings, more travel, stuff like that. I hope that they realize there is value in being out and talking. We were talking the other day, Mark. It's been 4 years since I met you. 4 years, a few months since I met you. And I've been doing podcasts and stuff ever since for 4 years. And all the people I know that I talk to on a regular basis are from putting out content in media and stuff like that. So if you're listening, you're saying, how do I grow my business or whatever? I know you agree, Mark. Keep putting out the content no matter what you add, because you're going to be adding stuff. And so you're going to be prone to cut this. And the final thing I say is that there's a concept in the general independent media business that if you have 1,000 fans, you can make a living independently. Well, in the oil and gas service business, if you have 1,000 fans that are clients, well, okay, none of us can service that many clients, right? So it's actually about law of averages and numbers and conversion rates, all that stuff. Content is the best place. So I hope that folks don't steer away from live streaming, podcasting, whatever it is, as they go back to meeting, because that will be part of it either next year or the year after.
Yeah, and to Ryan's point, when we talk about value, so we're talking about added value. And so when we talk about being physically somewhere or just, I can get on a Zoom call, we talk about costs. It's not always about costs. It's about value. So what is the value that you're receiving out of that? Whether or not it's free or very minimal cost, or it can be expensive cost-wise, but what is the value in that? And not only that, but again, to Ryan's other point was, not only just traveling, but, appreciating that. I mean, being a consultant, a lot of us, I think, have gone through the consulting role where you're traveling all the time. It's kind of mundane and this and that. And you do it every week, blah, blah, blah. But appreciating the time that you do spend with your client, I think that will come more into play because of what happened as well, is that appreciation to be with the client, to work with the client, and really get to work with them on one-on-one or in a small group or to, after hours, whatever it is that there's a value to that as well. So I think the appreciation, the value, there is something that, it's more of a hybrid coming out of these things. And I think we'll appreciate both of those aspects, both, being able to work a little bit more from home or remotely, and as well as the traveling part of it as well. I think we've got to appreciate and value both of them.
So, hey guys, we're just a few minutes to the conclusion of our first ever Viper Room. I know it's sad but true. Couple things that I want to share, which is in the world of doing these collaboratives, right, digitally, format is something that we've seen evolve just in the way we do these. You know, there's been times where I've really tried to control a discussion and it minimizes the discussion. And then there's other times where I step back and I really want people just to speak out, but we're all really thinking technology. You're thinking it takes 3 seconds for my microphone to even know I'm even talking. And then you're not wanting to interrupt because you know that weird thing we all do on conference calls where it's like, oh, nope, you go. No, I'll go. You know, we all know this crap that we deal with, but boy, you've seen technology come to play. You know, I would say to all of you guys, thank you for being here. One of the things that's an art form that we are at OGGN really circling the wagons around is the format. So any feedback you have where you're going like, you know what, I really wish that we would have gone 5 minutes in a circle or gone alphabetically or had these different segues. We are evolving this. It's going to get better and better. But I want to thank you guys. You guys, it takes a little bit of courage to do this and to do it live. And look at that. We have bottles that Brian raised. And I want to, and we will thank Avalor. These guys are going to be our best friends. I can tell there's going to be a lot we want to do with them. I want anyone who's watching this, we'll even make a mention. Connect with Avalor, get Column's information. We're going to have it down in our comments. We're going to have it with a post that will follow up. But reach out. This is a great gift. This is a great idea on how they've evolved to do business. Brian, man, all I can say to you is, you know, we did it. I think, you know, I'm going to let everybody have a closing comment, but we're going to shut this thing down in the next few minutes.
Yeah, you know, and before we go to everyone else, Russ Jones, I got to thank him and the Pirate Syndicate for the video, the platform, making everything look good when people like me can do everything possible to make it look bad that he cannot present. So he's done a wonderful job. So thank you to him, and thank you everyone here for, you know, joining us and sharing knowledge with, you know, our industry, our community, everyone that's here. I mean, really, I really take it to heart personally, because this is something that, you know, I've learned so much from each of you that I am so happy when you can share it with everybody else. So thank you.
I want to know what Wade Drew's light setup and microphone setup is, because y'all are lit perfectly.
It's his aura, actually.
Yeah, this is what mine looks like lights on the ceiling, a DSLR in front of a TV screen.
We've got, so to give you the real quick tour here as we go. So from the LIS studio.
This is behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, Bill.
Monkey cam.
So where we've got Wade and Drew here, if we turn that around, we have our big soft lights.
Wow.
Very nice.
Light ring. But the coolest thing is being able to see all of you guys on a screen right in front, right where our right where we're at. And so it really feels like we're having a good conversation with you guys. So this is
Drew, how are you mic'd up, Drew? You have a lav on?
So we're actually using a Mac computer that's sitting in front of us right now. And as the computer is sitting in front of us, that is our hard mic. And so the camera's 15 feet away. But yeah, it's so far it's worked out pretty well. This is what we're doing right now as for all of our demos and for all of our NAPE content and for all of our other, like we've got about 3 or 4 different other conventions that we've been doing content for. So it has been trial and error. We've made more mistakes than we've done things right, but we're getting it now. And
yeah, we've even invited CEOs and authors to come in and just talk about whatever they want to talk about. I mean, there's no advertisement, there's no mention of land information services or land vantage. It's all about whatever that person wants to talk about.
And well, Mark, I want to go.
Hey, come to Oklahoma City. Whenever you're in Oklahoma City, we'd love to have you. Like we're just enjoying being able to try new things out, you know, and whatever works and whatever sticks. Like that's what the beauty of this whole thing is. So much like, and I don't know if it was Paul or Brian who said it before, of we're all in this together. We're learning this new COVID lifestyle, and we get to try new things. And if it works, it can be an absolute joy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love
you
this behind the scenes stuff. So I'm going to do behind the scenes real quick.
Kudos to Wade and crew. Y'all are really doing virtual presentations right. I appreciate that. And I want to thank Warren tonight, first of all, for allowing me to call his phone because I had a buzzing on my computer because of technology or whatever. I need to call the Geek Squad and get that fixed. But I almost backed out because of that. And I'm so glad I didn't, because even though it's not perfect, it allowed me to be here. And I'm really, really thankful for you guys, especially you, Brian, for the opportunity to participate.
Hey, as long as you're here, I don't care what you sound like or look like. Just be here. Thanks, Paul.
Ryan Ray, any closing words?
Well, I feel like a Pro Bowler who 3 or 4 people in front of him got injured, so he's on the Pro Bowl team now. So, I'm a Pro Bowler by default, by someone else being injured. So I'm honored to be here on, as a Pro Bowler now. But no, in all seriousness, I've been around Wade at a few of the VIPER meetings. I don't know if you're with me, but I remember him. I always enjoy his stuff. I don't think I've ever met Paul before. I always said no Mark and Brian. So I always love talking to you fellas. And thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it. And, look forward. Hope you guys, wish you guys nothing but the best. And I'm just curious, did anyone else finish all 3? Am I the only one?
No, we're the only one.
I finished all 3 like a long time ago, okay?
I feel like I disappointed our brand by not finishing this. Like I thought,
goodness,
I won, but no, Ryan beat me hands down.
So what's the verdict? 1, 2, or 3?
I thought 2 was the
3.
favorite.
I like 2.
2.
I
like 2.
Big on 2 as well. I'm looking forward to the main thing is like this has been so fun for me, and I'm so glad that this was the first time I got to participate, and I cannot wait to see you guys in person. Mark, how you're saying NAPE being a hybrid, we hope to see you there. And I mean, Paul, Brian, Ryan, Warren, like I mirror the sentiment that everybody has, and that is I cannot wait to be able to shake people's hands again and see in person.
Well, listen, I'm in Dallas.
We will be at NAPE. We will be at NAPE live. We should all plan to get together.
Yeah, we'll be there
bring
live
our
too.
virtual audience with us.
That'd be
Hey,
great.
so Russ Jones, if you're willing to, I would love you to come on camera before we close out.
Yeah, show the man, the myth, the legend.
It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, but everyone's got courage, brains, and heart. So he can just come out and let's see if he does. Watch him. He's probably like adjusting his lighting and all this.
There we go.
Russ Jones, the man behind the curtain.
Thank you, Russ, man.
So much for being here.
That water.
Really appreciate it. It's awesome to see this collection of talent in a single session. So hats off to you guys. Even with all of the technology and everything evolving, it's still great to see everybody together and joining in and making a difference. Make it matter, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. And with that, from the hearts of OGGN, the Oil and Gas Global Network, where really our entire what we do in the media that we put out is all about telling your stories, the stories of the oil and gas industry, the stories of the companies that are servicing the oil and gas industry. All of this collective synergy is really what leads to survival. It leads to better knowledge. And more importantly, it prepares us all for the things to come. So Mark LaCour, thanks again for I'm happy to be a part of this, but more importantly, I think all of us, it gives us a voice, right? And that's really what's so important for any of us to succeed.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
We
you.
are
It's one thing to have an idea. It's another one to put it in production. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.